Hi, this is Jarrod Becht with EDL 681, presenting my final project in Livebinder for the course. I decided to develop an online training for the Office of Student Conduct here at Central Michigan University. I developed a online training for specifically for hearing officers that can't attend on-campus training but want to be part of student conduct. So this is a training module and lesson plan that is solely on Blackboard that they have to go through. So to dive in just a little bit, you can see my overall lesson plan and learning objectives. So my learning objectives, following the online training module, participants should be able to effectively define the Student Conduct Office, understand the Code of Student Conduct, discuss and describe the student conduct process, describe hearing officer responsibilities and procedures, and discuss how to make a decision regarding the hearing, and describe how to properly draft sanction and decision letters. Some important items to know included on the lesson plan are the delivery. Like I said, this is solely an online training. There are some items that individuals and participants have to complete beforehand, which we'll get to in a second. But in order to complete the training, you need access to Blackboard, Twitter, and the internet to participate fully. The training is going to be composed of timed slides and discussions, and participants will have to go through every slide and listen to the entire presentation to move on to the next portion of training. The training will conclude with an online quiz to assess understanding of the hearing officer position and responsibilities. So, pre-training items. In order to successfully partake in training, participants must read the hearing officer manual and the code of conduct, and they're also asked to tweet to CMU Conduct 16 with training items that they're looking forward to hearing about. You can find these items that you have to complete in my items to read before training tab. You can see you can access the student code of conduct right on the website and go through section by section and become familiar with the student code of conduct, as well as the hearing officer manual. The hearing officer manual provides a pretty comprehensive list of what a hearing officer can expect from the Office of Student Conduct. Talks a little bit about the office, as well as what the code of conduct lays out, and how the discipline process works. What's nice is it provides a flow chart for how conduct works and how students end up to a meeting or a hearing and where the hearing goes. It also provides scripts for both the hearing process and hearing meeting, which all hearing officers have to use. So this is something that I'm asking them to get familiar with before they come to training. The next thing is during training, it's going to be a 2-hour training through Blackboard, as I mentioned. The training will begin with an overview of the content and objectives, which we'll touch on in a few minutes, and then really dive into the Office of Student Conduct and hearing officer responsibilities. Post-training, there are a few expectations that occur offline that include completing a SurveyMonkey to provide feedback on the experience and improve future trainings, as well as continue to tweet general questions or interesting articles pertaining to student conduct to the OSC or Office of Student Conduct Twitter. This is to allow some hearing officers continual development in regards to student conduct and also offer opportunities for people to focus on trends and best practice. It's also expected that hearing officers enroll and participate in other online trainings supplemental to the training that they receive during this session. So to kind of dive into what the online training looks like if they've completed all the items that they need to read before training. As stated before, they can expect that this online training is going to take about 2 hours. You can pause and stop it and return at different times if it's within 24-hour period. So we start with the learning outcomes that I already went over and learning objectives that I went over in the Livebinder section. And then we get into talking a little bit about where the office is, what they can expect at the student conduct office, and how they can best partner with the office as a hearing officer. So some of the small logistics. Then I go into who's involved in the conduct process, letting them get an understanding of who they could be working with. And then again, the flow chart. If they didn't understand it during the manual, we touch on it in this presentation as well. And so hopefully they can see and understand the flow of the hearing, and that as a hearing officer, they're not the end of necessarily the case, but it could go on to an appeal. And then we get into the nitty-gritty about how hearings are conducted and the differences. We talk about what they need to do to prepare to come to hearing. The script, as well as the code that we've already been over, they will have to pull up again and physically have in front of them at their computers in order to participate fully in this portion of training. Again, we're going through, like I said, what the hearing process looks like and how they can prepare, providing them with that. And then talking about how they actually hear the case, things that they can expect. Again, what they need, the script and outline that's provided, and the example that's in the hearing officer manual. Some of the small details that people don't realize are part of student conduct, we talk about, all right, you're about to have a hearing. Who's allowed in that room? Both for the university and students. How we handle difficult situations, whether that's attorneys and parents that want to come, and what is their role in student conduct. And as a hearing officer, what can you expect to have to deal with? Then I try to give them the tools that they need to ask good questions in a hearing and provide examples. So after they understand who's in the Office of Student Conduct, how the hearing process fits into the flowchart of student conduct, how to conduct a hearing, we talk about how do you make a decision after a hearing, and how do you deliberate that situation. We talk about common sanctions. Most of the time on campus we may see alcohol. What happens if a student violates the alcohol policy? What are common sanctions? The typical sanctions, like I said, laid out for drugs, alcohol, computer abuse. Talk about some difficult situations as far as what if it's not a single student? What if it's an entire organization? How do we understand the student code of conduct and utilize that as hearing officers in making decisions? Same goes with on-campus and off-campus incidents. I offer them tips on how to make the decision so that they can understand how the university works in comparison to the legal system, and how the student code of conduct works in comparison to the legal system. Provide them a template that they're able to download and see and keep on their computer if they want to use as they're starting to have their first hearing officer meetings and issue sanctions and decision letters themselves. Again, talk to them for a while about how to make the decision and offer tips. And then making the decision checklist. Something else that I provided for them was a checklist that while they're going through the hearing process, they can then write notes, but then refer back to when they're deliberating. So again, I lead them through that process and the importance of consistency, and so that they can understand how important it really is to get the decision right. Then we move into a portion that's a little more interactive and reflective at the same time. Online case studies, where I'm asking them to read the cases, and these cases will pop automatically up during the Blackboard training, but right now I have them located on my Livebinder. They're presented 4 different case studies, and they receive 15 minutes of set aside time where they get to reflect and go through each case study, and then they come back and I offer them common answers to the case study, common things that are brought up and questions raised, as well as answer the ultimate questions of whether there's a policy being violated, if so, who's in violation and why, as well as what if there's not a policy violation. I lead them through the student code of conduct, and they're expected to have the code up as they're going through these case studies so they can decide, is this something that's against our code of conduct or is it not? And they have that physical student code of conduct from the items to read before training that will be up. So you see, we go through 4 different case studies, and then I'm asking the students, or the participants, to come back, and I will deliver some more of the commonalities in those case studies. From there, we go into another interactive portion using YouTube, and with the help of student conduct, I'm creating a video where students and participants will be able to watch a hearing take place and gain a better understanding of their role as a hearing officer. So if they didn't understand it through the slides and through the Blackboard shell, they get an understanding through the video a little bit as well. And then to assess if they've understood what they were trained on in the hour and 30 minutes or so, they are then presented with a quiz. The quiz will be in Blackboard as well, like I said, and what's nice is it's a timed quiz and provides instant feedback. So they will be graded instantly, and they have to go through this quiz in a timed manner, and once they go through one question, they can't go back. I've listed all the questions that are implemented in the module on Blackboard, as well as the highlighted answers. The nice thing about this is the fact that, like I said, it provides instant feedback, and they're able to determine if they've passed or not passed, and if they're able to be a hearing officer or not. And then we wrap up the training by asking them to complete the Survey Monkey that we talked about earlier, and trying to encourage them to log in right away so we get that instant feedback. Now, to talk a little bit about the technologies that I use in the application to theory, I have placed a link here, and so you can see the description of the technologies that I use from Blackboard, YouTube, Twitter, and SurveyMonkey that we discussed, as well as the connections to learning theories that we've discussed in EDL 681. The 2 theories that I really chose to hit on, one loosely tied to the 7 principles of good practice in undergraduate education by Chickering and Gampson. I found some correlations there. And then obviously I think a trend probably among some of these learning opportunities is that it can be tied directly to Cole's cycle of learning. And so I tied the online training module and manual to the participants' learning experience, as well as Kolb's cycle of learning. Hopefully this was insightful. I encourage you, because I had to go quickly, obviously, through the PowerPoint. If you're interested more in student conduct and understanding how that message will truly be delivered on the Blackboard module, to visit the slides and gain more understanding. I appreciate your time, and thank you for listening.